All right, I'm glad to have you back. We are Headache-Free Properties, and we're talking about how to purchase the property. Last session we talked about how to evaluate a property, and once you've gone around and you looked at different properties and you determine whether you're going to buy it and hold it or you're going to sell it and rehab and flip it, you have to purchase the property. And that's assuming that we've already done the first stage, which is determining you've got money and you can actually afford this property. We know how we're going to purchase it, who's giving the money, all those different things. But let's talk about just some of the basic principles of how to purchase the property and the sequence and what happens. Let's assume that you are purchasing this property directly from an individual. So that means you're negotiating with that person at their house. And then the other scenario you could have is you're purchasing this from a wholesale individual. Normally there's not a whole lot of negotiations that go on with that. And then the third situation would be that you're purchasing it from a realtor, or you have a realtor involved with you and you're purchasing. Those are the different scenarios in which you can be in a purchase situation. But the first and foremost situation, you have to determine whether or not you're going to purchase it on your own or you're going to purchase it through the use of a professional. Now, if you're purchasing the property on your own, there's some documents that you're going to need to have with you at all times. I don't even go outside my front door without having a special sales contract. Now, it's been doctored up a little bit from the agents that use it here in St. Louis, but basically it's a document that says, I know I'm not buying a retail purchase where you go in there and you're adding what all the items are in the house that you're going to take or not take. It's a simple contract that says, I'm buying the property that I see before me as is in the condition it is at a certain day at a certain time for a certain price. You're going to fill in your name on a document. They're going to fill in their name on a document. You're going to put a particular date or so that you intend to close, what title company you're going to use, and that's it. That's the typical process and property documents you're going to use. It's a simple sales contract. It can be a one-page or two-page document. You want to use something that you're familiar with. I like the words where it's in plain layman's terms. You can have a lawyer in your state and city that will give you a simple sales contract that you can use over and over. They can put into it all the different outs that you would like to have. That seems to be real big right now. That you can basically change your mind and walk away from a property and a contract. I like to pretty much be upfront with the person I'm buying with. If I intend to purchase the property, I'm giving them a contract and I say I intend to purchase your property. I may have to get financing needs and so forth taken care of, but your contractor is going to cover that. Now, if you need a weasel out contract, there's usually a clause that says, based on your inspections, which you have in 5 to 10 days, and you can come through and walk through. Some people say it's based on your partner's approval. Some people say it's contingent upon financing. All of those terms can easily be located inside your contract so that you have a viable way to get out of the project if you do not like it or you find out something later on that changes your opinion of that property. That's critical in nature and you do need to get out of the property. Worst case scenario is that you're going to lose your earnest money that you've put down. So the key to that is don't put a lot of earnest money down that you're not willing to forfeit. Typically I do $200-300. If that's the case, you're able to forfeit that money and walk away from the deal. And yes, you've lost $200 or $300, but you haven't lost, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on a situation where it wasn't the best for both involved in the situation. So once you determine whether or not you're going to enter into the contract yourself or through a professional, if you're going to enter into it with yourself, it's pretty much basically the same situation. It's just you're negotiating for yourself. You have your own sales contract that you're going to use with all its outs and so forth. And I usually carry 2 copies, if not 3 copies of that same contract because I like to leave an original with the homeowner and I like to take an original with me so that I can take it to the title company. But let's just run through the basic scenario. You have the documentation that you need. You're negotiating with the property. You walk through the property. You understand. You think it's a sweet deal. You want to jump on it. And you begin to enter into negotiations with the homeowner. And you have in your idea, in your mind, what you think the property's worth. You had your comps and you had all that prior to walking through the property. Now you've gone back and you're doing the second visit just to make sure and confirm all the numbers based on what you had before. And you're going to begin a negotiation with the person. Like I said, normally you go once, the other person goes, and then you settle on a price. Okay, so you've negotiated, and here's one thing I learned early on. The first person who speaks loses. So when he asks you, what do you think you want to offer for the price, you want to come back with, what do you think it's worth? Or what are you willing to take for this property? And then just be quiet. Now, this is going to be the most awkward time of your life, and you're just sitting there, and you're both waiting. If you both know this little game that's played, no one wants to speak first. So, as you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, it's going to seem like it's going to take forever. But the first person who talks generally loses. So once you get past that, you agree upon a price. Now you're filling out the contract. As you fill out the contract, you want to have an understanding of what goes in each blank on your own contract. If he or she chooses to use their own contract or you're using a professional, obviously you're going to be at their mercy, and you just have to read over and understand what it is that you're signing. But in general, you're going to put into the blank the name of the entity that you're purchasing the property through. You're going to put the property address. You're going to put the purchase price amount of the property, any earnest money that you put down, the title company where you're leaving that check. Going on down, you're going to talk about financing concerns, and do you need a loan or do you not need a loan, a bit in the basic terms that you'll need if you do have those. And then there's going to be the title concerns. Who's going to order title, you or the seller or the buyer, and then what date do you expect to close. Following that are going to be any special instructions that you need. Say this guy's got a Model T car in his garage, and he says that's not included in the sale of this property. You're going to make sure that you have that exclusion in the special agreement section. And then after that, you're going to talk about the disclosures, whether he's going to give you a disclosure on the property, any hidden defects that he knows about, and then you sign the contract. You're going to sign a contract, and anyone else who's responsible for buying and purchasing in your company, and then the seller is going to sign his name. Both I recommend that you print and then put your contact information, your email address, and your phone number on there as well. So that makes it easier for the title company to contact both of you. Now once you've done this, like I said, make 2 copies, one that you leave with the homeowner and one that you're going to take with you. Now, once you've done that process, the next thing I do is go directly to the title company and drop off that contract so that they can begin to start pulling title work. Other things that you're going to want to do beyond that is make your contact calls to your insurance company, get quotes on what it would be to cover that house, what type of coverage, who your lender would be if you have to name an additional insured on your insurance policy. And then you're going to take all the business information that the title company is going to request in order for you to close. That's generally going to be your articles of incorporation, your operating agreement, or your bylaws, depending on whether you have an LLC or a corporation that you're closing with. They'll give you an indication as to when they think would be a good day for you to close. You're going to contact them and give them the information of the seller for the property so that they can gather the information they need to from that person. You're going to line up your money, how you're going to close on this deal. You may have to get promissory notes and deeds of trust arranged and created. You may have to transfer money for if you're doing a private banking situation from a self-directed IRA. But all of these things you're going to coordinate. And one thing that you're going to do is continually stay in contact with the title company to make sure they're actually processing your loan, any problems they run into with title issues. And you're also going to be in contact with the seller to make sure that they are feeding the title company the information that they need in this process. Now, if all goes well, this should be a very simple process. And I'm anticipating that it will be a simple process for you because you're going to stay on top of each and every aspect of the closing. Now, when the day before your closing comes, you're going to make contact with the title company and get an estimated HUD or settlement statement. On there, it should have all the expenses that you should incur in the closing that's going to happen the next day. You want to go through that with your coach or someone who is knowledgeable in closing, and make sure that all the customary fees are on there, nothing's been left off, nothing's been added that you didn't know. Any surprises, make sure you got a proration of rents if you're buying something like that, or they're prorating your taxes that you're going to have. Any person that needs to be paid on that HUD should be there. Make sure that the numbers all tie out, and then on the bottom should be the amount that you need to bring to closing for your check that needs to be wired into the title company, or that you're going to pick up prior to closing that day to bring to closing with you. You're also at last minute, the day before, make sure your insurance is in place, whether or not you've paid them in advance or they're going to be paid on the HUD, and the title company is going to forward the check to the insurance company. But you want to make sure that as you walk out of closing, your property is covered. You also might probably want to line up the utilities on the property and make sure that they can be switched over the moment that you purchase the property. And the next thing is your lockbox. Make sure that your lockbox is in tow with you, because at closing you should get the keys to the property that you're purchasing. And the first thing you're going to want to do once closing is over is go secure your property, make sure the keys work, check the utilities, what's on, what's off, and so forth. So the day of closing, you get there, you've picked up the check, you're excited to be there. You go in and sign all the documents. Make sure you take your ID, because you're going to need your driver's license in order to close. And it's an exciting time. I understand that. Read through the documents, but don't take all day, because let me tell you this. Unless you sign all the documents that they put before you, you're not going to get the keys. And you're going to learn more and more about this. But there shouldn't be anything unusual or exciting that day that's out of the ordinary. The title closing agent is going to go through each and every document and tell you what it's about. Now, I know there's those individuals out there who wants to read each and every word on each document, and that's great. The first time you should do that. Second and third time, it's the same document over and over. Once again, you're not taking ownership until you sign all the documents that they have. So, with that being said, you're going to go through. Closing should take all of 10 to 15 minutes at most. If you're buying in a conventional way, if you've got private money, it's going to be even faster. Don't think of it like when you purchased your house and you had a stack of papers 1.5 inches thick. A closing where you're purchasing a property is maybe 10 to 15 pages. You got maybe 8 or 9 signatures and you're done. So understand that, and it's an exciting time. Beyond that, once again, make sure when you walk out of the title company, your insurance is in place, you secure the property, and you make sure that you're on to the next phase, which is how to rehab your property. So thank you for this process. It's a very simple and quick and should be painless process, except for the amount of cash that you need to bring to closing. See you on the next side.